Hey there. This is just a reminder that we will be at the Portland Retro Games Expo 2019 that is happening the weekend of October the 19th and 20th. As usual, we will have a table on the floor and we will be doing a live show, a live panel. So watch the web for details about that panel and about our meetup. We would love to see you. It is a very good time. Come on out. We can only do it thanks to the people who have decided to give to us at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, our monthly Q&A, listener response, and episode announcement program.
And this week, we are reading your responses to our September games. But before that, we are hitting your questions and prompts and talking about our topic for the episode.
Yeah. And if you want to give us questions and or prompts, hit us up at patreon.com/DuckFeedTV. About a week before these episodes get recorded, we put out a call for responses. And if you have already put out a question or a topic and it has not been covered, we probably, maybe not now, but soon have another catch-up episode in us.
Yeah,
especially for topics.
Yeah, topics have definitely been piling up, but we got a lot of questions this past week, so no big deal. We will eventually get to everything.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and get started here with kind of an easy but unsatisfying one, but sometimes, that's the answer. Mm-hmm. William says, maybe a dangerous question, but has anyone ever changed your mind about a game or piece of media that you originally thought was bad? Like, not just thought it was okay, but actually thought was bad. I find that the reverse happens a lot. I like something, then with time and reading more about it, I will turn, sometimes completely. But I don't know if the opposite has ever happened to me, and I'm curious. No. And I know that's an unsatisfying answer and kind of intellectually uncurious, but if I'm like, I thought this was dumb, and someone talks about it a lot, the best thing that can happen for me is I can understand what they like about it, but nothing it's fairly untouchable, like just kind of my initial impression. Like, I can change my mind about something, mm-hmm. but I cannot be told to change my mind about something, and reading about somebody else liking something just teaches me that they like it.
Yeah, and teaches me reasons that they do like it, and oftentimes those reasons are, opposed. Like the things that they like are just things that I don't care for. And
their gamer values are different than yours.
Yes,
and I love that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I love knowing why people like stuff that I don't like.
Yes,
genuinely, but it doesn't actually change my mind. And it goes kind of for all media. And then if I really like something and then I read about somebody who dislikes it, every once in a while I'll learn about something that I will consider something I hadn't thought about, mm-hmm. Kind of unlock something. But it never takes me from like, I thought this was good to I thought this was bad. Sometimes it can put kind of a gray cloud or a gray lining on a silver cloud, for me. But it's never really, swings my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
So
easy answer, unsatisfying answer, but it's the truth.
I'm a contrarian. So.
Michael asks, playing Half-Life 2 and Control recently had me thinking a lot about physics in shooters. We see a lot of non-combat games like Amnesia or Portal-like games play around with physics puzzles similar to Half-Life 2, while combat-focused games seem to shy away from this type of thing. Are there any other examples you can think of that incorporate Half-Life 2 style physics into a more traditional shooter? Do you think modern FPS games like the new Wolf or Doom would benefit from this?
I don't necessarily think that modern FPS games like the new Wolfenstein or Doom would benefit from it.
No.
But I know that such a thing has happened. I'm having a hard time coming up with an example on the spot of a shooter with a strong physics.
I mean, it's not a first-person shooter, but PsyOps came out a little bit after Half-Life 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that leans very heavily on physics, specifically for combat, although there are some crate stacking puzzle kind of things. I think the best use of physics in shooters is really for environmental destruction, things like that.
Yeah.
Look at something like Fear or Black from around that same time, where they took that technology and used it to be like, yeah, this place is going to be completely destroyed by the gunfire when you're done.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you run into kind of an issue with a modality. We talked about that in the Half-Life thing, but just kind of like, oh, now it is time for a puzzle. And it works in Half-Life partly because it's a game of the vintage and because the pacing of it is so good, but it's something that I don't necessarily trust every developer to have like puzzle. Now it's physics puzzle time.
Yeah.
In the middle of a shooter. Mm-hmm. And then what's interesting, with New Wolf and New Doom and just kind of shooters in general is that like a lot of times shooters are shooter plus a thing.
Yeah.
So you have Wolfenstein, which is shooter plus narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Doom, which is like shooter plus like weird arcade arena thing. Like it's not a traditional shooter in the way we think of it with like a corridors and a narrative. It is more like you're in these arenas, almost going for these combos with the glory kill system. Mm-hmm. It feels like you're chaining moves almost.
Yeah.
And I think of physics puzzles as something you could add to that formula, but it's not necessarily like an additive thing in all situations.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
No. Let's see here. Here's one from Craig. Do you ever worry that there'll come a point where games just aren't made for you anymore? I personally don't think it'll happen. There will always likely be someone with similar sensibilities putting something out there. But I did feel that things were moving without me when MMORPGs got huge again and when Battle Royale games broke so big. I think games are too big of a pie to ever not be for anyone. I think games are for everyone and they always will be because there's so many people making games. I think that there is a thing where mainstream or very popular games or things like that can move out of step with what you dig. And then you just have to kind of turn your attention elsewhere.
Yeah. I think it's more of a, problem of the coverage or the conversation not being for you so much anymore. Like if every single headline that you look at when you're going to read about games is about a kind of game that you don't care for, that can kind of be a bummer. But there is so much coming out that I think every month you would have something that is pretty much tailor made for you coming out in some form or another. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel. And that's been the case for me.
Yeah. The biggest thing that makes me worry about it is VR. Just because I'm physically like I don't really like VR as an experience, but also I'm pretty prone to motion sickness. Like it turns me into Cole on the Half-Life boat pretty easily.
Cole on the Half-Life boat.
And they've figured it out to a degree. Mm-hmm. And there's some things I can play. Like I played some Beat Saber like a last Duck stream, and it was pretty fun.
It's so good.
It was fun, and I could do it. Like it didn't make me sick. But that's not the only type of game I like to experience. Like a lot of the games I like to experience are really dependent on exploring 3D space. And a lot of the things that they've done, like put you in a vehicle or make you teleport from point to point, would not be satisfying in like an 0451, where I want to be, I want my avatar to be crawling through those vents and exploring all those nooks and crannies. Mm-hmm. So, I don't want that type of game to go away. I don't want to have my experience limited by VR, which is the thing I'm afraid of.
Yes.
With that. So that's part of the reason why I've been resistant. But hey, climate change will kill me before that becomes a thing.
Look on the bright side.
Look on the bright side. So
yeah. This one is an easy one to me. Paul says, the remake of Link's Awakening has made me think again of the moral conundrum I pondered long ago. Is it ethical to wake up the windfish? Spoilers for a 26-year-old game. The entire world is part of the windfish's dream. To escape Koholint Island and return to Hyrule, Link must wake the windfish up, but doing so destroys the entire island filled with seemingly sentient people and creatures. Yeah, wake it up.
No, yeah, it's not real.
Yeah.
Like it didn't happen. Those are all Link made them up. They're not sentient. Link made them up.
Right.
they came from, or they are not Link, the windfish.
Yeah.
Made them up. Link is the only actor in that whole situation. The rest of them are figments of the windfish's imagination.
Yeah. And basically. And who's to say something won't accidentally wake up the windfish? Don't take the responsibility on yourself for keeping it asleep.
Yeah. There's nothing different from waking the windfish. It's no different than closing a book after you're done with it.
Right.
Like, yes, all those characters felt really real to you and they were great characters and they're really well made, but they're not extant.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Moving on to, and other people think that's obviously, there's articles and stuff. Other people don't feel that same way. So I get it.
Right.
Someday we'll do Link's Awakening but yeah, I've never felt like that was a bad thing. I just felt like that was kind of a twist ending, even though I do have affection for that world.
Right.
I do think it's a really charming world and stuff. I just think that it's not less charming because it's a creation.
Right.
And then that's also helped by the fact that I'm playing a video game. So guess what? Link also, if it's not an immoral act for somebody to do a thing that makes Link disappear, he's not real as well. He's also a character. When I stop playing Breath of the Wild, it's not a crime to Link.
Hey, Paul, can I recommend that you never play Soma?
Yeah. Yep. He's a very, very similar conundrum. Yeah. This is a tough question, but I thought this was interesting, so I wanted to ask it. Douglas says here, there's a cause embraced by the greater left that I can't get on board with, despite the fact that I am furiously left-wing. This is moving away from games. This is a light question. In other ways, is there anything that you have a hard time buying that is in your wider political sphere that makes a priority? So this is a real. I saw somebody online ask, though, it's like, what's the furthest right-wing belief that you hold? Mm-hmm. And I think that's an interesting question, because it is something where, like, you and I are pretty left, and we have become more left as time has gone on. We are not. I don't think that we are quite radical left, despite like what some iTunes reviews have said,
right? Where
it's all socialist. Like the shows are now 90% socialist propaganda.
Yeah.
But there are like things where it's like, yeah, I am a fan of and admire people who are much further left than I am, and have opinions on things that I either can't follow them on or I just don't know enough about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking about this, and I have an answer. I don't know if prepared, so I can give you time or whatever. Mine is, I am the heavy duty leftist people I know are really like full on abolish prisons. And I don't know if
that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Tons of reform.
Yeah.
I've read things about private prisons that make me furious and make me want to go fucking strangle.
Yeah.
Like people who are doing this, these fucking ghouls. Like I think that there are horrible people in charge of that stuff. Way into reform. I cannot get on board with and I am like a huge fan of restorative justice, more on that later. But I cannot get on board with the idea that there aren't pieces that need to be taken off the board.
Yes. That need to be for everybody's good, separated in some way from other people and taken special care of. Yeah. I mean, gigantic reform to the point where the system would be unrecognizable to Americans today.
Yes.
And I've heard very compelling arguments about completely abolishing the carceral state, and some of them are kind of persuasive. In general, though, I end up thinking, but like, I don't know, there's some people who are just going to kill, and that's going to be, don't go looking for them where they don't exist. But yeah, no, I think that we both kind of come down at the same area there.
And the other one too being, and I just don't know about this, but is open borders. Like I don't actually know enough about it.
Yeah.
Like people used to try to gotcha me all the time on Curious Cat. Like, oh, so you believe in open borders? I'm like, I don't know. Like I have to read about it. I don't know.
Open borders as you define them, or as I would define them, or as like I've never heard anybody on the left actually say, oh yeah, open borders, outside of extremely like anarchist points of view.
I've seen it, but I just haven't taken the time to read into it. And in a way that's a failing, but also I don't think I'm being a hypocrite. Like I don't ascribe to the view because I don't know enough about it.
Right. So, like I could be persuaded to see like, oh yeah, that would actually be a good idea. I'm
going to go ahead and far as say this is not an invitation to persuade me.
No. Please don't persuade.
Could I theoretically be persuaded? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I want someone listening to this to persuade me either way?
Yeah.
Not in a million years.
Yeah.
I know how to Google something and research it. This is not, it's not anyone's job to do that and try to convince me about this thing. It's just, everybody's got blind spots right now. That is one of mine. At some point, I will, possibly rectify that. But
yeah, and like this isn't so much like a left or right style thing, but like a tactical kind of quirk of mine when it comes to this kind of stuff. Everybody cannot care about everything 100%.
Oh yeah,
you have your issues and you advocate for them and you fight for them, and over the course of a broader movement or a broader part of the spectrum, enough people
Everything
will pick up. Yeah, everything will get covered. So it cannot be a gotcha that like, like borders, immigration, blah blah blah. Like like there are parts of that I care about tremendously. But it just that like that there's so many. I've got so many other pieces on the board that I'm trying to take care of. Right.
Yeah, it's too much too. Like in the big wake of kind of activism that came after 2016, one of the things I read, because it became really exhausting, like because all of these organizations, like a lot of people were mobilized, including us, and a lot of organizations were like, hey, now that we have your attention, this is a huge problem, and it's always been a huge problem.
Yeah.
And there was this huge flood of information. I remember reading a thing that was like, hey, pick two. Like as far as your money and your full attention, like, yes, you need to be worried about all of this stuff. It's all important to a degree, but if you're going to invest yourself and invest your money, pick two.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that, and like in aggregate, we'll get all of them. And it's basically what you said, but I remember just reading an article about that. That was like practical sanity advice.
Yeah.
In the wake of the election,
and the converse of that is if you're out there, let other people pick two.
Totally.
Exactly. Make your case and be an advocate and do whatever you need to fill the air and move the needle on the two that you care about. But that somebody chose a different two than you cannot be a disqualifier.
Yeah.
You cannot keep them from the broader movement if they have picked a different two than you have.
Yep.
Yeah, this is kind of related. It's going down to a show question, but I figure we get the political stuff out of the way. Cthulhu Relay Flatagen says, hey guys, love what you do. I respect your approach to political issues and the way you address them. I don't always agree with your conclusions, but I understand and can get behind your reasoning. I'm sorry if you have addressed this before, but if you considered having a political show, I would definitely be a listener. No.
No, and it's not for the reasons you think.
Right.
It's literally for what we just said. Yeah. It is the amount of work and effort to feel like we are educated enough to have takes that we'd want to share exclusively.
Yeah.
Like, despite what you may read on iTunes, most of our shows are not political in content by, there is a 1% rat feces in this hot dog, not, right. 30%.
Yeah.
There's most of our shows, we feel like we talk about stuff that we know about. And that's one of the reasons why, like, we replay everything. Like, this could be, our show could be like a thing where it's like we talk about a game. But no, we play it like right beforehand so we can, like, it's very fresh. It's like one of the things that we try to do. But politics, like, that is too big for me to have the time and knowledge to dedicate the education. It's not about not wanting the feedback. It's not about not feeling the conviction. It's about not having the time to be as educated on every subject as I'd want to be. Yeah.
Even if I do not know enough to be confident speaking about it, I know that generally if an issue would come up on that kind of show, it would deserve the respect to have the kind of weight of research and knowledge behind it. And I would not want to treat, even issues that are not among my two, so lightly that I would just go out and fire off my mouth ignorantly. As much as people might not think that is a concern of mine. Yeah.
And for the record, Cole's two issues are women's rights and yogurt when the lid has gone away and you're not hungry anymore, but you don't know how to put it away. So,
No. So it's it would be a lot, and I feel more comfortable and on better footing, either talking about the politics that are present in games and depiction and things like that, and generally whatever I am bummed out about that will bubble up on like abject suffering or whatever.
I feel like it is not saying too much at this point to call ourselves like professional, like, video game opinion havers.
Yes.
We've been doing it long enough and we have our bona fides, but we are amateur political opinion havers.
Yes.
But we're also people who exist in the world. So that stuff does leak through.
Yeah. And also, for as crowded as video game podcasts are, political podcasts right now are an absolute shit show. In terms of yes, there is a lot of demand, but there are so many big names doing this stuff, I listen to a great deal of political audio content. I don't know that I would have anything to add above and beyond, say, like the Majority Report or David Pakman or these other kind of daily shows that I listen to. So like I would say
David Pakman, but it was too easy to vandalize.
Yeah. So I just like, I don't know, if you're looking for that, like you can go and seek out the stuff that that I would listen to. I don't know that I would necessarily need to synthesize and regurgitate here,
Can you imagine the nightmare that we had to watch the Democratic debates for work?
Oh, awful. I watch them for quote fun, and I hate it.
My dude, I gotta stop you from doing that. I've dipped in and out of those things, and it made my skeleton want to run away from my body so badly. Like,
yeah, no,
like I gotta get. That is just repulsive.
No, for the 37th time, Mr. Sanders, you're going to lower costs dramatically, but what about the taxes?
Yeah,
and then your right-wing framing CNN. Go to fucking hell.
Mr. Sanders, this is purely academic because we're not going to report on anything you say later.
Right.
But we're gonna Photoshop you out and put a tree behind that podium in all the footage of this because nothing you say is worth considering.
Right.
Because we definitely don't have an agenda, even though you are like a front runner in this.
We're only going to mention you in the margins.
Horrible. That's another reason not to get into it. Is it's not even necessarily because of the feedback, but also because it's so fucking bleak.
Yeah, no, it is incredibly depressing.
Yeah. Jumping back to life questions briefly. Nicholas says, one thing I wanted to ask about is your relationship to each other. Do you treat each other as friends first and business partners second, or vice versa? Also, if you're comfortable answering, have you ever had any major conflicts over the direction or other things related to the network? Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're one of my best friends. Like, we're really close friends.
You're the person I talk to the most in the world. I mean,
yeah, same. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. If we weren't friends, this would be really difficult.
Yep.
I think that we are blessed because those two things, as far as I know, have never majorly and very, very infrequently minorly come into any kind of conflict.
Yep.
I think that we naturally have a pretty good fit about what direction we want to take.
Yeah.
Things in. So there have been minor things here and there where we've had disagreements, but never has anyone drawn a line in the sand that the other person has then drawn a different line in the sand, and we've had to. I don't think I can. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I would contradict you if you were wrong. So.
Yeah, just we've never had to have somebody like totally give all their ground on anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, and as far as like, how does the friendship kind of manifest? Like, like before we even start recording, we have the green room, where we just talk and ask how things are going. And generally, like if those two ideas, like, okay, friends or business partners are ever in conflict, like we treat each other as other human beings that we like. First, that is the priority, to make sure that each other are taken care of. And, work comes second to that.
Yes. It is different than other partnerships that I know of, like you look at the Mythbusters guys who hate each other. And then you're somebody like, since I, see Tube Talk and like I watch, Penn and Teller Fool Us stuff. And I'm a weird kind of fan of those guys despite their horrible politics. And they talk about their relationship and they're just kind of like not real. Like for a long time, we're not friends.
Yeah.
Like it was this weird, just like business-based symbiotics thing. And one of the things they talked about on something that always stuck with me is the question they get all the time is like, how has that partnership lasted so long? And they talk about it being economic dependence. And there is an element of that, like to us, right? So at the end of the day, neither of us were successful podcasters before we got together. At the end of the day, the way that I make my living and the way you make your living is dependent on the other person. So that could be fallen back upon should everything else fail. And it just never has, so it is there though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we haven't had to pull that card.
No.
Ever.
Yeah. And we're incredibly fortunate for that.
Yeah. Very lucky.
Yeah.
So
8 years, buddy.
Yeah. Quite a while.
Yeah.
A third of your life, a quarter of mine,
Yeah.
So
pretty good.
Pretty good.
moving down here to Jack, who writes, "Hi guys."
It's not a third of your life. I know you're not 24.
Hi everybody. I'm
Hello, I'm 24. It's actually a fifth of mine, and I just I am not in my pushing 40 mindset yet.
Oh yeah. So, no, just say you're still you're like anybody who lived between the 90s and 2000s. You are constantly dropping a decade.
Yeah. Because why not?
Yeah. Who does it hurt?
Climate change. It's not gonna get us first. So
yeah. Jack writes, "Hi guys, I'm moving into my first apartment soon, and I plan on getting a cat sometime in the next few months. I've never had a cat or taken care of a pet on my own before. As cat lovers yourselves, do you have any advice on what to do before and after adopting a cat?"
Yeah. This is for me, and your experience might valid, and I do have specific things, but I've also found that for me, when you read online about how to do this, most of that advice is pretty good.
Yes.
I'm not trying to tell somebody just like, hey, go to Google for your, you ask for personal advice, but like all the things that you'll read about like keeping them in a smaller part of the house at first, keeping them with their box, visiting them, but not giving them full reign is really important.
Yeah.
Especially if you're introducing another, like a separate cat, but even just for one cat.
Yeah.
You want to do that slowly.
Socializing them slowly as well.
Yeah.
Like when I first got Greta, when she was still confined to her room, I kept her in there way too long. She was ready to come out before that. But, before I let her out of there, it was I just arranged visits. So my brother, my niece, my mom, my stepdad, just coming over and like, sit in this room and give her treats and pet her, let her come to you and let her get comfortable. I think that is incredibly important, especially if you're adopting them young.
Yeah. Yep. And then like cat proofing is really important.
Yeah.
Like if you have things that you do not want your cat to claw, like take proactive steps to protect those things, in advance. Give your cat good outlets for its natural urges, like give it toys, give it scratching posts, things like that.
Yeah.
And then just like patience, because there's a lot of like, it took me a while to get like food that Pocket liked. So I was like scared because he wasn't really eating.
Yeah.
And he came home from the shelter with like a respiratory infection and stuff. So he just like wasn't eating, he was sleeping all the time, and I was very worried. It just took a little bit of time, and which the vet told me that, but it's you immediately like can worry about that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just take some time and give yourself some time with it. Yeah.
There is you need fewer things for having a pet and having a cat than you would probably be inclined to believe, given what you're reading. However, there is a good article that I relied on quite a bit over at the Wirecutter. Do a search for what to buy before adopting a cat. And they recommend good, high quality things like scratching posts and litter boxes and stuff. I wish that I had followed this advice ahead of time and hadn't bought the cheaper versions of stuff. Because I just ended up throwing that stuff away and getting the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is also, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I got a cheap carrier and I wish I didn't, because it's falling apart now.
Yeah. My carrier is too small. Pocket has gotten like way too big.
He's so long.
He's really long. He's turning into a long teen. There was like a little meme thing that was like all cats begin as small potates, and then they become long teens, and then they can either become long boys or big potates. And I've really got my finger crossed on big potate. Like I want Pocket to get chonky as hell. Yeah. I think that I've definitely got a long boy though. Like he's like super slonky. Slonky. Like he's extremely slonky. So I think that is the way. But I also, I went to the vet recently, and so I was looking at like cat age stuff, like their chart, and asking the vet about it. So like one, I've got another half year before Pocket's grown. Do you know what the stage is before he becomes an adult that he's called after he's a juvenile cat now?
Okay.
Do you know what the next stage is called?
What?
They're called primes.
Yay!
So he's gonna become a prime.
Pocket prime.
Pocket prime, dude. And then he becomes an adult. But before the juvenile, between the juvenile and the adult stage, they're primes. It's going to be awesome. He's going to be a prime. And then after that's when I should. Thank you. That's when I can expect him to start calming down in his prime stage.
He's going to transform into not a nightmare to live with.
He's going to transform into a container of McDonald's hotcakes. I picked up a full set of those at Comic-Con.
I love that picture you took.
Yeah, that's the second. I'm so happy about it, and yeah, It has one of the first set, so I'm like only a couple away from getting all of them.
Right.
So very, very excited.
Yeah, I only have a couple of like the set from the early 90s, late 80s. I don't have the original ones like you have.
I only have the one of the original ones, which is like a breakfast, like an egg McMuffin. And I don't have any of the dinosaur ones. I don't like those.
Yeah.
I don't know, like food that turns into dinosaurs is stupid. That turns into like really angry looking robots.
Yeah.
The shake is like a fembot. The shake has like gigantic like DSLs and blush.
Yay.
Like it's really something else.
Yeah. No, I've got the cup that turns into the dinosaur, and when you just like the first move of transforming it is to like split it in half, and it just looks like it's full of pink flesh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just froze this container of pink slime. Moving on to show questions. Here. I'm going to do this one from Mark Mahler.
Okay.
Do you think you'll ever cover a fan-translated game on the show? I've been getting into older Famicom and Super Famicom games that never made it to the States in the past few years, and some of them seem like great wall fodder. Sweet Home, Live a Live, Dark Half, to name a few. But I don't remember you guys ever tackling a fan translation before. Is that something you'd be up for? Or do you think that relying on someone other than the developers for part of the experience throws too big a wrench into the mix?
How fucking dare you? We'd never do that. No.
Yes. Yeah. Mark, if you check your inbox, your Patreon has been rescinded in real time. As this
No. We covered Shadow Tower Abyss for the for Bonfireside Chat. We are not opposed to doing fan translations at all. The only reason I haven't made it more of an issue to do Sweet Home, which is a game that I enjoy quite a bit, because I know Gary doesn't care for random battles.
Yeah, I don't care. Yep, I'm not super into that. There are other like fan translation things. Like enough people have told us, to do Mother 3, and I have that in like a fan translated cart.
Yeah,
is the version of that I have. If people have told us that, part of it is like just the kind of games that haven't come over, like random battles, lots of random battles. So that's basically part of it. There's no principle thing on principle.
No.
Against doing it. It just has not come up because of the types of games. Like some of them might be very good, but it just hasn't been a thing we've been thirsty for.
Yeah. OG Clock Tower would be good to do. I think that's a good short horror game. And like fan translations are legit. People do really good jobs with those. I don't envision a world where we don't do like Retro Game Challenge 2.
Oh, I would do that right now.
Yeah.
Like I would bump what we have for November and do that. Like,
okay, we're starting it later today. Go play.
Yeah, and do, because we talked about that, but I would also like to do a full treatment of the first one, and do that. And I'm also just kind of due for a revisit. So doing Retro Game Challenge 1 and 2 sometime would be really fun.
Yeah.
No, nothing against doing it. It's just those ones you've mentioned have various reasons.
Yeah. Let's see. Going to do a media question here. Jordan asks, as we are approaching October, what is a horror film you found too scary, either in concept or execution, to watch or finish? So this is a little bit of an embarrassing answer. I was so traumatized by watching Pet Sematary too young, I think 4 or 5 years old, that I have not gone back to revisit it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pet Sematary is spooky. I don't know if there's a movie that I have been too scared to watch.
There are games that you haven't finished because
there are games I haven't finished. Yeah. Like I had to duck out of Outlast. Like I was just like, the way that handles being spooky was too much for me. There's a Half-Life 1 mod called Afraid of Monsters.
Oh yeah.
That I just find the way that's nerve-wracking is just too much for me. At least the time I tried to play it. I couldn't. Maybe now I'd be able to, but at the time, could not. So there's definitely like things, and then the entire, we've talked about Five Nights at Freddy like a bunch as a thing that we admire the execution and simplicity of, but the actual just like there's a jump scare happening at any time, have fun thing is just too much for me. Like I just don't like being. I'm not even against a well-used jump scare. Like as much, horror aficionados like to talk shit about it as a tool in general, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I just don't want something that's the only trick.
Yeah, Freddy's trick.
Yeah, it is Freddy's trick. Yeah. Let's see. Probably just like do you want to do some lightning round and then go into the topic?
Yeah, let's do that.
It seems like about the timing. for this. So again, if we didn't get to your other non-lightning round questions, again, we will do a catch-up here. I'll get started here with Pat. Are there any game series that you either came to late or never got to play that you wish you had tried earlier?
I mean, I wish that I had given Infinity Engine games a little bit more of a chance.
Me too.
You know,
that was my answer. Was me wishing that you had given those more of a chance?
No, I just like firing up. But before I did them for the show, firing up the original Fallout or firing up Planescape Torment. Couldn't get over the interface. Obviously, I've gotten around to playing all of those. Or most of them for the show, and that is cool and good. But I would have liked to have had a little bit more experience with those. All those years, I could have been enjoying Planescape and thinking about the existential ramifications, and I wasn't.
Yeah, that's it's very influential. Getting that in my late teens as a late long teen. I wish that during my JRPG boom, I played better JRPGs. Like I wish that I had gotten into like the Persona games earlier on.
Right.
Or offshoots. The other big one is the Yakuza games, which we did Yakuza 1 and I liked it. And then, I picked up Yakuza 0 and I started it and I liked it, but they're just so fucking long and there's so many of them and they're constantly getting remade and it feels like they're constantly putting them out.
It feels now, like you had to have been on the ride for the duration. No.
It almost feels like Counter-Strike at this point, even though it's a single player game, just that it's so established and there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And I know people who look at this huge, just buffet of content of 100-hour fuck around games that have that kind of charming writing and world and look at them and they're like, yes, I cannot wait to dig into this. And to me that just fills me with anxiety. I'm just like, man, I'll never have enough time to get through those. The other big answer is I wish that I had, when I was in my CRPG boom, I wish I knew about the Spiderweb software games.
Oh yeah.
Because the ones of those I played I've liked a lot. I have not gone deep on any of them because there are so many of them, they're so big. It feels like they come out frequently. They're getting remade all the time. It's a very similar problem, actually, just for a very different genre of game. And I just wasn't in the pocket for it. And now my time is more precious.
Yeah.
So
good answers. Yeah, because it would be another one of mine. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I'll never play a Yakuza game. It's just I don't know, the constant parade of new releases and remakes is stressing me out.
It's intimidating.
So,
yeah. Let's see here. Popo Fashosho asks, as a soft Midwestern boy myself, I was wondering if you guys have been to Portillo's. If you have, do you miss it?
Yes, and there's a Portillo's in downtown Portland.
What?
So I can get Portillo's whenever I like.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize they went that far west. They do not extend this far east. Looking at looking at their website, it seems like a big boy.
I guess I don't know a big boy. We drove by a big boy a lot when I was young, but we never stepped foot inside.
Yeah.
So
but the array of food that I see here is very big boy-esque.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like a Portillo's. I tend to, when I used to go back and visit my mom and my family, my stepdad was a big Portillo's guy, so he would oftentimes get Portillo's.
Yeah.
And often enough, he would give me a Portillo's gift certificate. So that's why I was thrilled to find the Portillo's in downtown Portland.
Nice.
It was kind of a big deal when it opened up as well.
What is special about Portillo's?
It's just it's like a specific type of food that isn't. It's somewhere between a fast food restaurant and an Applebee's.
Yeah.
So it's not quite fast casual, but it's a step up from a McDonald's or whatever, or Subway.
Yeah.
And it's just Italian beefs and sausages.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's just a food type that you don't see given that treatment very often. And they're good. They're good hot dogs. It's a good Italian beef. It's a good Italian sausage. They taste pretty good.
They've got they're very just on the front page I see at least 3 different Chicago dogs. So
yeah. They do a good job of it. And Portland is not a good hot dog town. There's not a lot of great hot dog places I found. So, if I'm really craving a hot dog, Portillo's ends up actually being a pretty good solution for that.
Nice.
I'm talking about for breakfast today, I had some raspberries. So a hot dog is making me hungry and that might dictate terms for me for the rest of the day. I don't know if I'm going to go to the downtown Portillo's, but I might have to hunt down a hot dog.
No.
Nick Phillips says, easy question. If a pancake or a waffle has chocolate chips in it, do you also put syrup on it?
No.
I put a little bit. I don't use nearly as much, but I think a little butter, syrup, and chocolate is a nice combination.
Yeah.
But I go real easy.
Yeah. I don't think that maple and chocolate taste good together. I think it's a little bit hat on a hat. But I will do, if it's possible, get a little bit of whipped cream. I generally don't do a chocolate chip pancake or
You
waffle,
don't do a sweet breakfast generally.
Generally. I have a soft spot for waffles and for French toast, but yeah, my go-to now is not really a sweet breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, every once in a while I feel like a sweet breakfast, but I actually generally don't get chocolate chip waffles or anything either. I've been real into, like, when places have them, a Dutch baby.
Oh yeah, they're gigantic. It's a tall stack in one cake.
Well, it is, but they're like, it's so thin. So it is like a tall, like, it's just like a stack of pancakes in terms of volume, but just sweetening it with powdered sugar and lemon juice as opposed to syrup and butter is just really tasty. Like, that's a really nice combo.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm a fan of blueberry waffles and pancakes. Yeah. I don't know. I just like blueberries. My breakfast today was some blueberries. So
blueberries are good.
Yeah. This is easy here. Reed asks, what's the class or archetype that you gravitate toward in every class-based game? For me, it is usually a heavy cleric or paladin if possible, but when not there, I go for the guy with the biggest weapon.
Yeah, I do magician, and if failing that, an archer.
Pretty much the same, caster or like a rogue kind of person, usually because those get you into more content if it's a video game. Yeah.
Necrobrode says, what's your weirdest quirk? Choose one that you're comfortable telling us about. Thank you for that second little bit.
Yes.
So I'll tell you something very dire until I have permission not to. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it is hard to say what's a quirk.
Yeah, it's this is a difficult one. Not because I feel like there's an awful lot that I would be embarrassed, to divulge. I don't know. And like also there's ones that like maybe I should feel bad, but I don't actually feel defensive about it. Like, I don't know, I never use silverware without looking at it like real close because I hate the idea of eating off of something that has like dried bits of food on it.
Yeah, that's that's good. It's a good good quirk. Yeah, I don't know. Like, this is actually harder than I thought. Like, because define quirk, right? Yeah. It takes me like 2.5 hours to fall asleep.
Oh yeah, yeah. Same.
I know that's a quirk, but it sucks. Like, I need a lot of runway to fall asleep. I'm a very slow eater. Yeah, I don't know. Like, those will have to be the one. Those are definitely not that weird. Yeah. Maybe we'll revisit this, and I'll see if I can come up with something weirder.
Yeah, no, I will catalog my various sexual indiscretions.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
on Sexual Indiscretion Cast, we'll have.
David asks, ninjas sneak into your homes and steal your cats. You can enlist the aid of one character from a game you have played in the last 12 months to get them back. Who do you pick?
Last 12 months.
Yeah. We did Mario 2 in the last 12 months. I would say Mario. He generally gets the job done.
Mario gets the job done. And also that contextualizes the kidnapping into like not being gritty.
Yes.
Or whatever. Because I played that John Wick fan game. Ooh. And I was like, oh, John Wick. Because these ninjas got to go. Yep. Like, John Wick will kill them all and they got to go. Yeah. For doing this. But then I was also like that, things don't necessarily end well for pets, in that universe. So that might be a difficult one. And then I would love to say Geralt.
Oh, shit.
Which also doesn't end well, but he could also get that job done.
Yes.
And I'd feel confident in his abilities, but that's not the last 12 months. Yeah. But I'm going to go with those answers anyway, because I'm just going to cheat.
Yeah, that's fine.
No. You get, Zom says, you get one fictional artifact, device, item from any video game. You need to use this item to make the world a better place in your vision. What do you choose and how do you use it? Can you think of anything that can go wrong? So this is different than the yes, you want the portal or gravity gun question.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't know. Like, it feels like portal or gravity gun would fit into this. One fictional artifact, device, or item.
Sure, but how do you make the gravity gun make the world better?
I don't know. You could go help Habitat for Humanity.
How would that go wrong?
I don't know.
Once
too many people have homes.
Cool, they're just going to want more habitats.
Yeah.
Sure. They start with one. Hello, I'm a Republican senator. Sure, they start with one habitat that they get, but then they're just going to want more habitats. Cool.
Yeah, nice to go into bridges, stadiums.
Horny for habitats, like Senator Throck Badgood in Horny for Habitats. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, how about this? The dagger from Sands of Time.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Even though, and that definitely has ways it would go wrong. Like that would end up being a genie's wish.
Well, I mean, it's specifically in the second game, like you mess around enough and then like the manifestation of fate comes after you.
Yeah.
So you just only use it when when it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah. I'm going to do kind of a cheat answer. I was trying to find a duplicating device from from an item. I guess the matter duplicator thing from Prey.
Oh yeah.
Or the matter breaker downer thing, and that could obviously go wrong. Or I was thinking the lamp from SNES's, specifically Disney Aladdin, because I think that I could be trusted with the 3 wishes. I know everyone says that. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I could just make the good wishes.
Yeah.
So give them to me. Yeah.
Let's see here. We got 2 more lightning round. We can get these. Sid asks, what really matters? Your favorite cool swords in games. I'm positive that Blade has been featured in a video game of some kind, probably like a Marvel's Ultimate or something like that. Blade sword that cuts off the hand of anybody who picks it up that isn't him.
Yeah, that's pretty rad.
Yeah,
it's a good sword. Yeah. I mean, just because it's fresh in my mind, I'm going to say the Fume Knight sword.
Oh yeah,
extremely cool. Mm-hmm. There are other swords I really like. As I've gotten older, the idea of the Buster sword is like way less interesting to me.
Yes.
I am way more into a Dark Souls style giant sword, which is slightly less giant.
Yeah.
And wielded by someone slightly less waifish.
My favorite sword in real life is the Dark Souls 3 Artorias sword replica. It is the size of a letter opener, but it is as blunt as anything can be. I keep it at my desk and use it as a back scratcher.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, I was reading about Dark Souls 3 because I've been replaying it, and people talked about how fragile that thing was.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad it's stood up to your back. But it's apparently been a TV tropes thing. Oh. That it's very fragile, along with the Badass Flask.
Oh yeah, well the Badass Flask just sits on a shelf.
It's so dumb. Yeah. Speaking of, Holland says, as men who love knickknacks and tchotchkes, but also have feline companions, how do you display them? I've had to put everything in drawers since my little fuzzball joined the family. For me, it is high shelves.
Yeah.
And things like that. So it is difficult. I had a low shelf that I had a bunch of stuff on, and Pocket was constantly like stealing, amiibos to go do crimes with them. And I eventually put those in, and I said, nope, these things are going away until I can get a bigger place where I can put these up somewhere different.
Yes.
So I ended up actually putting away a lot of my tchotchkes, at least temporarily.
Yeah. Definitely high shelves as well. I just like in my dining room, I have 3 dedicated shelves that are about 6 or 8 feet off the floor, something like that. And I got those before I even got Greta. So yeah, I just like having stuff up high. I've got some knickknack stuff on my bookshelves, but she has shown no interest in getting up there. So, until that proves to be a problem, then, I'll just keep it there. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So high shelves, would be my recommendation.
Yeah. High shelves.
Yeah. Or like a curio cabinet that closes probably as well.
That would be cool. I've thought about that a lot too, especially in my big time action figure collecting days.
Yeah. Like IKEA, they sell a relatively inexpensive one. It's like a tall glass rectangle that has several shelves. Looks like a nightmare to keep clean. But it would solve the problem of displaying stuff in a relatively small footprint. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would be down for that. I should look for that, especially now that I'm looking to acquire the McNugget buddies to celebrate their friendship at home. So,
yeah.
Moving on to our topic.
Yeah, get ready for a bummer.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is spicy. Mark Park says, recently, a wave of bad behavior, to put it mildly, by game developers has been exposed. When things like this happen, does it change your opinion on the games they made? Is it hard for you to separate the art from the artist? So in a general sense, I imagine that we'll call this episode like the art from the artist, or the art and the artist, or something like that, because that is basically what we want to talk about.
Yeah, and this happens quite a bit. We've had the fortune of having a lot of information come out, and it is to the point where before I say something positive about a game, I have to do a Google search for the title or the creator and append problematic and see what comes up.
That process has been so I find that very frustrating.
Yes.
As a thing, because the assumption that, like, yes, you have to, it is on people to do their research.
Yes.
Before you say something, but just being, having to say, like, I don't know if this person has been canceled.
Yeah.
As a thing. I wish that the onus was on the listener to assume that a endorsement of a thing is not an endorsement of the person.
Yes.
In a way, like, yes, it is good to be aware. Mm-hmm. Things come out at a rate and a clip that it is impossible to be aware of everything.
Happened to us recently here. We talked about what was the faux 2.5D build engine game? Not Dusk. Like, that was actually made by good
Fury.
People. Ion Fury, yeah. Like, in the time between when we recorded an episode and when it came out, all of their unpleasantness happened, and like that was a pervasive attitude across their entire studio. And kind of online presence
sucks.
And stuff. Yeah. Like, it looked like a good game, and I don't want to give them money now.
Yeah. So, we have definitely had this experience. We have enjoyed games that were created by people who bad information has come out.
Yes.
About them before. And what to do about that, like, is a really complicated question. So I guess to start, like, one of the things, to answer the first question of this about, like, does it change your opinion? Something I say a lot, but it's probably worth elaborating on and discussing, is everyone draws their own line.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, to me, you have to check in with your feelings, and if supporting the thing, or not supporting the thing, if playing the thing, like, you've already bought it, it's not a question about money, it's not a question about promotion, you've already bought it. You already have it. The damage, if that can be considered damage, is done.
Yes.
Does it make you feel gross to do it? Does listening to Ignition Remix, which is a fucking banger song, does that make you feel gross to listen to it?
Right.
If so, don't listen to it. If not, I think it's important to be aware that, like, R. Kelly is disgusting and likes to pee on little girls. But you are like, yep, I know that. I really like this song. That's a compromise and a dissonance I'm willing to put in my head. Because if you think that there are no compromises or dissonances in your head right now, you're lying to yourself. There are thousands of them. It's basically the human condition.
It is the entirety of your personality.
Yes.
It is the definition of human experience, which is the buffer between executive function and sensory input.
Yes.
Yeah.
You hold contradictory ideas in your head now. Yeah. Adding one is not a crime. So that is, what I mean when you choose to intentionally add a contradictory idea. Like, I love H.P. Lovecraft. He was not a good person. And it's hard to separate the art from the artist because it bleeds into his stuff. It's in there. Yeah. And I choose to pan for gold in that shitty stream. Yes. Because I want that gold. That gold speaks to me on a level that is also very powerful.
Yes.
And I am holding those two things, those dissonant things at once in my head. It's not that my love of that gold is more important than racism in general, but almost every, if something being traced back to a shitty white dude is grounds for not appreciating it, that gets rid of more culture than I'm willing. Yeah. Goodbye, Tolkien. Like, goodbye, fantasy. Goodbye. Like, that gets rid of too many things. For me, and it's just I'm going to make that compromise. Yeah. So, I'm drawing a line there.
And I think that there is a certain gravity to there's a certain gravity-filled nihilism to that, which is okay. If this is the story that I think is going to be is told by people who are broadly opposed to a caricaturized version of cancel culture. Well, everything is bad, so it's not worth caring about any of this. So why are you angry at I can't think of a recent example. Why are you angry at hatred? Yeah. Or Agony, a more recent horror game that has a lot of really bad stuff in it. It's still worth caring about this stuff. It's just, again, you draw your own line.
But it's important. So, every part of you draw your own line is intentional, as every part of that sentence is important, right? Yeah. So in that, what you're referring to is the verb of draw. You have to do it. Yeah. You have to actually draw the line. It's worth considering, and that is the responsibility that you have. Yeah. There is a temptation in people to, if you can't help everyone, don't help anyone. Yes. Yeah. As a thing. And in that case, it's if everything is problematic, either cancel everything or don't care about anything. No, the work of being a responsible and thoughtful consumer is that you do consider these things. Yeah. it's just, but it's a consideration. It's like you think about it, you make the decision based on that. The other part of that sentence that's very important is you draw your own, because I personally don't have a lot of like I get irritated by people making that decision for other people.
It really, I think that it is not helpful.
Yes.
Kind of in the extreme.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, nobody is going to, you're not going to change anything or make anybody a better person by being like, I can't believe you played and enjoyed Postal.
Right.
Maybe they have done the work that we're talking about and are like, yep, I know that this is a nihilistic and sexist shitty game. It just came out at the right time and I just really love it. I love Duke Nukem 3D.
Yep.
I love that game. Like, he's not a good character. In that game, you go up to strippers and then like give them money to shake their weird digitits at you. And then sometimes they get blown up by aliens and stuff.
Yeah,
and then later in the franchise, like we did Duke Nukem Forever for the Outer Suffering. It's one of the most sexist games I've ever played.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Duke Nukem 3D I love. Like, I love that game. It came at me at the right time. It does so many things I think are very cool. I choose to hold that dissonance in my head. Yeah. I don't have a lot of patience for somebody who's like, I can't believe you support that game, or I can't believe you like that game.
Right.
For something that's not active. I've made the decision. But I'm not going to play Ion Fury. I don't want to give those guys money.
No.
Like they've and they've doubled down on it. They've chosen not to make changes.
That they had a chance. They had a chance to actually respond to it, and all they did was make it worse. So
yeah,
sorry, like you kind of made your choice, if it came down to like, I don't know, I feel like I'm going to die if I don't play this game. Guess who's getting a whole bunch of money from the, guess who's going to get a whole bunch of money, the Trevor Project, the human rights campaign.
you can moral offsets are part of the ludicrousness of living in a world where it's a fallacy to say this is happening more now. We're just learning about it more.
Yeah.
I truly believe this has always happened.
Yes.
Like, it's not like sex pests are new, right? Like, they have always been a thing. We just learn about it now.
Yeah.
With frequency. So making those kind of like, if it's like, hey, I'm going to get this game, but I'm going to steal it. I don't want to give them money, or I'm going to get this game, but I'm also going to give money to the Trevor Project or something. If that's how you draw your own line, I don't think there's anything that's wrong with that. It doesn't have to be anyone. Like, someone can be like, I'm not going to do that. That's super cool. Like Cyberpunk is coming out. I'm going to play the fuck out of that game.
Yeah.
Like, that is to my shit to avoid, and I will buy myself a moral offset for it. I don't like how they treat their workers. The social media team at that company is shitty and transphobic. I care a lot about trans issues. I don't like, it just puts me in a spot. And it's not that playing a fun video game is more important to me than supporting this. I'm going to do both. It is not an either or thing to me.
It is a really, really strange calculus, because, you have to, ask yourself how much harm is actually being done, and how much would I just be saving myself some hassle by not addressing this at all, by not playing this game, by not talking about it. The examples that you gave, Duke Nukem, et cetera, like that, or Postal, that's objectionable content. There are objectionable creators who make games that I love. RimWorld, right? Like that is a really, really good survival sim. Like, we were going to be doing a stream to support trans stuff, and somebody said, hey, might not be a good idea, because look up this creator's treatment and attitudes about bisexuality and things like that. Like, ooh, no good. And like, it's been hard for me to play that ever since, because I get super on edge looking for places where the bad attitudes seep into the actual work itself, And
you have to, and that's where it feels bad for you.
Yeah.
So of course you shouldn't do it. And the person who said like, hey, maybe don't do that for the stream. Totally.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to send that message in the stream.
No, especially accidentally.
1000%. Right. But like, one of the things too that I think about a lot, and it came up with RimWorld, and then also comes up with Cyberpunk, right?
Yeah.
Like, specifically aspects of Cyberpunk. No one in the world is going to bat for CD Projekt Red's like social media team, ever, right? But they had an ad that was like, for a soda in the world, is like, take a walk on the wild side, and it had a feminine presenting person with a clear penis. And a lot of people are like, this is beyond the pale. This is super transphobic. And then reading like online and like reading different trans people's reactions to it, I'm not making a reaction for anyone. I'm just learning, and one of the dangers I think that you can fall into, or that people can fall into, is treating any oppressed people as a monoculture.
Right.
Because a bunch, I read takes that didn't like it. I read takes that were like, I don't actually see a problem with this. Like, I don't actually think this is a problem.
Yeah.
Same thing with the way that they're not having a gender selector. They're doing it as a slider.
Yes.
Like, basically, I've seen people who are like, like, I can't believe that they're doing this. And I've seen other people be like, no, like, where else are you going to get that level of granularity in a game this big?
Right.
Like, no game has ever done this.
Yeah. Saints Row 2 was praised for having that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and this is bigger. This is a huge game, like one of those widely anticipated, games. So there's an element where people are like, they've drawn their line. They're not going to give this developer the benefit of the doubt for anything.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but it is not inherently to play this game that has, specifically in the issues of that slider and the ad, right? Like their social media team, I think, is pretty hard to defend, and I wouldn't defend them. I think they're horrible.
Yeah.
But those specific things, like if you're like, supporting this game is supporting these transphobic attitudes, like not every single person who is trans thinks those are transphobic. Like, and that's been from my reading, like of looking through it. Like, some people don't have a problem with that. They're like, actually, this is kind of cool. This is good. And I'm like, well, it's not really for me to decide. I'm not a trans person.
Right.
I'm a cis person. I have to draw my own line of what I'm comfortable with, but it doesn't have to be, that line doesn't have to immediately turn into, this is a strike against my allyship or my this cause that I care about a lot.
Right.
Because it is not a mono response. It is not a monocultural response.
It's not. Additionally, lots and lots of people work on that stuff. That's
a big thing that I think about a lot, actually.
It's a lot. Is it worth punishing the entire team because of this one part that bubbled up? How much evidence is necessary for the entire tree to be considered poison? And I think that is, not exaggerated is probably the wrong word, because I want to believe people's takes, especially when they come from a genuine, heartfelt place.
Yeah, let me put an asterisk real quick and just say that we're not being prescriptive in any of this.
No.
We're talking about what we think and how we approach this stuff, because that's the question.
Yeah.
Don't, so when you say you want to respect heartfelt takes, please do not read any of this as us saying, like, somebody who's like, I can't support this company, it makes me feel like dog shit. We're not saying that you're bad. No. In any way. So please continue. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. No, so what I was basically doing, the sentence I was hedging around is, I think that the percentage of the tree that is poison, that makes it so that any fruit that comes off of it is not worth it. Basically, that any fruit that comes off of it is disqualified. It gets shrunken a lot. It is exaggerated. Like, okay, first sign, dump it all out because we saw this one thing.
It's not how I want to approach it,
No.
So I think about, we talk, I've used this example a bunch, but Aziz Ansari having a super shitty date and being an awful creep, right? A bunch of people were like, oh man, fuck Parks and Rec. Like, Parks and Rec was made, with a lot, a good number of minorities on the cast, a good number of ladies on the cast and writing team. It is not a show where all of those people need to be, punished in my mind for this one person doing that. The thing is bigger than that, So for me, that's the line, right? And then obviously that doesn't apply to somebody like Lovecraft, where it's like that's basically him. There's not a whole company, right? So he is the tree, And I think if Lovecraft was alive right now, I would not support him at all.
No, he would.
The fact that this was the 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would be. It would be, or it depends. Like, there's some evidence that he has changed some of his, beliefs as his life went on, which is like the other thing that I think is important to talk about. This,
yeah,
get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
But the, I think that he has changed his beliefs, so I don't know if he'd be there. But that's different than this one actor on this one show, and that's different than saying like, hey, I can't watch the show without thinking about that piece, and it makes me sick to watch it.
Yeah,
that's fine. No one's pressuring you to continue with it. But the idea that it is a universal moral imperative to not watch it because of that one poison branch, I think is something to be interrogated.
Yeah,
a little bit.
And this is all complicated. I'm just making an observation about the way this works. This is all complicated when consumption is performance.
Yes.
I'm speaking in very broad terms here, and this is not just about us as people who play games and talk about them and proffer opinions either on shows or on Twitter and stuff. You just see people who, are playing a game on Steam or, tweet about a game and get responded to with all of this stuff over and over again. I can't believe you're doing this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it has gone from criticizing the thing to criticizing the performance of the consumption of it. And that it feels a little bit too hollow mirrors for me to actually be constructive.
Yeah, it's give them a bit of like informing somebody like, hey, I don't know if you knew this.
Yeah.
But this is the studio did this.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Like maybe they don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
But then if they do know it, give them the credit possibly for doing that work and choosing to take an additional dissonance into their head.
Yeah.
Because we all do that, and and I say we all do it. Like, maybe not everyone does it in terms of media. I'm sure that there are people who it is a one strike, it's out thing. And there's so much media out there. If I never played anything I knew was problematic again for the rest of my life, I could still play great video games and never run out. And that's fine. Yeah. That is a fine choice to make. I have no problem with that choice. It feels more complicated than that to me. And I choose not to approach it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as like the feeling icky, I don't know that I can, play this or consume this or listen to this if I know something bad that the person did. Well, it's a matter of time, when the stuff is still in the headlines, it's probably like for me, I love the Night in the Woods soundtrack. It's hard for me to listen to that.
Me too. I love that soundtrack. And that situation is actually I'm glad that you brought that up because one, I think that some people who are listening to this might be surprised that we are not coming out more swinging in favor of cancel culture, so to speak. I'm not against cancel culture at all. I think it's really important to know this shit.
Yeah.
I just also think and I think about that thing with Alex Hawalka. And I want to just roundly, condemn and say all of the harassment that the victims and stuff are getting that are absolutely horseshit, uncalled for monsterism. It is absolutely horrible that Zoe Quinn went and said these things, and then now people are saying you're a murderer. If you think that, that is a monstrous thing to think.
Yeah,
it is.
Reconsider that position, please.
Please reconsider that position. It's okay though for us who liked Night in the Woods, and specifically we had slightly different experiences with the game in general, but both love the soundtrack. To still wrestle with our feelings of loving the soundtrack of it. That's what we're talking about here. We're not excusing Alex Hawalka's behavior, and we're not saying that anyone was wrong to air it.
Right.
They were right to air it. It's good to know, right? One of the things that goes around in this discussion is talking about a broken step. Warning you.
Hit that again. Broken step. What's that?
A broken step. So that's when somebody, you're warning somebody about a broken step on a stairs.
Okay.
When you do this. So somebody coming forth to be I had this experience is telling everyone else who might work with that person, hey, skip that step.
Yeah.
Because you might trip. I think that's great. I think that's important, vital work.
And specifically that work of, basically stating your case and airing what happened to you and warning people about this person who has hurt a lot of people, that is more important than my personal enjoyment, than my uncomplicated enjoyment of a game.
Of course, it's super important. I would not say that person shouldn't talk because it makes me a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
But the other difference that's inherent in that is the practical effect of that, which is, hey, other people might work with this person and get genuinely harmed.
Right.
So when we're talking about it as a consumer of art, we have a different relationship or danger from Alex Hawalka than a developer who might work with him would. Right. So to us, us having to make those considerations and stuff, that's part of the price of being a thoughtful consumer of media. Lay that on me. That's why I signed up for, by liking stuff. And,
by expressing my opinions about these issues.
Yes. And I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Happy to consider that, it's just different than warning people off.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely an unmitigated good when this stuff comes to light.
Yes.
It is good for the world, even if it makes us uncomfortable and have to ask ourselves difficult questions. It is good. in that specific situation, like, just so no one comes away from this and being like, oh, I can't believe Gary and Cole were saying it's good that this guy committed suicide.
No,
we're not.
Fuck no.
That's horrible. Like, that goes into the second part of this, which is like, what I'm talking about is that, like, I think that there is room for people to, we talked about Ion Fury, right?
Yeah.
Those guys got called out, immediately doubled down on it and said, no, this is our culture. It'd be censorship to change it. That fucking sucks. It is possible to have this kind of thing happen and be like, yeah, boy, I didn't realize that.
We fucked up.
That fucking sucked. I fucked up. It's time for therapy. It's time to learn how I fucked up. How can I make this better?
It's time to step away and come back when I'm ready.
Yeah. What does restorative justice look like in this situation? And one of the reasons I think people forget that is a thing that can happen is because almost no one ever does it.
Oh, of course.
Aziz Ansari's takes a long break and then goes back with like a Netflix thing that's about Triggered or whatever. Louis C.K. goes away for a little bit, comes back and starts doing material about his dick, like immediately, like no changes. No one ever does it. But in a perfect world, the end result of something like this would not be just to warn people of a broken step, which is extremely important, absolutely 1,000% vital, but also would be like, hey, and it's not the victim's responsibility to give the perpetrator the ability to do this. It's something the perpetrator should take from it. Is, hey, I can reflect and improve based on this. What does restorative justice look like?
Yes.
What it would be the non-punitive way of this. Like, yes, this feels like a punishment. I feel punished. In some ways, I am not happy right now. This is having a bad effect on me. What would it look like to actually try to make this better?
Yeah.
And if that is fixing yourself, and going to therapy, reflecting on what you did wrong, et cetera. If that is literally putting resources, if that's changing your company policies, if that is, doing what you can to ensure this doesn't happen to other people, what does it look like to actually change as a person? Because like one of the threads about this, and one of the things that made me really sad about the Alex Hawalka thing specifically, is his sister who came out and said like, hey, all this abuse is correct. This is all horrible. Like, my brother, who I loved very much, has been doing some work to try to fix this.
Yeah.
It doesn't excuse him. No one is saying that he's excused. No one's saying that dude's not a piece of shit.
No one is saying it's all better now.
I want to live in a world where somebody can make a mistake and learn from it. Yeah. And almost no one does it. Like, it's so fucking rare that it happens that like a company or a person changes in the response to this stuff. They go on Netflix and they get a special called Triggered and they double down. Yep. But I really want to live in a world where it is possible that somebody could get called out by this stuff and be like, hey, I am truly sorry. Like, I am really, really sorry. Here is my understanding of what I did wrong. Here's what I'm doing to fix it. What can I do is there anything that I can do to help restore this damage that I've done? Understanding that not all of it can be made good. And the victim at that point has no responsibility to give you an answer to that. Right. But to try, or to say like, I'm going to try to make this better, like to take it as an opportunity to learn, I think is really important. Yeah. Because it's everyone listening to this, myself included, and you have done shitty things. Yep. Right. Like, I have done shitty things, not on the level that we're talking about. I've certainly grown as a person though. Like, I spent like a bunch of I was not good with women when I was a teen, not in a sex pest way, but in a sexist way. I was a homophobic teen, as was the style at the time, not to excuse myself, but I was. It took me a long time to like understand trans issues, to the degree that I understand it now. Like, I'm not an expert. I don't get it. But to understand it at all and have that sympathy, it took some time, right? Like it took me a little bit. And I guarantee that if I was doing the podcast when I was in my, late teens, I would have said some horse shit. Yeah. That belied a smaller and worse mind. Yeah. And somebody could say, hey, I can't believe Gary Butterfield said this. And they'd be right. And because I have worked on myself. I'm not perfect. I have tons of work to do. I will never not have work to do. Yeah. But I want that to be the ontological truth of the world, that you can work on yourself and try to improve.
And the question that comes to me is more about people who say shitty things than anybody who's an actual, like, straight up abuser. I'm not trying to be an apologist for the former, but how much is it on the public at large, to allow room for them to grow, right? Rather than just kind of shutting them down every time they show up.
And if that's the price, if that's the albatross they wear, for doing the bad thing, it's not up to us to decide that they don't wear that. I think it is up to people to decide whether they want to put that on them. If they're making a good faith effort, right? Like, I'm not going to buy Ion Fury. I was excited to play it. I'm not going to buy that game. They have like doubled down on it. I am going to buy Cyberpunk. The social media team does not give me tons of confidence in the company at large. I don't reduce the game down to their social media guy who is a prick, or a team, or anyone who approves that, I'm sure, is actually like incredibly shitty. I don't think the whole game is that. And they have talked about like them doing that gender slider thing, right? Like, to me, that shows like at least an attempt at growth, even if it's clumsy and shitty, enough to where I'm like, well, I'll get that thing. And I think about like an individual person. If a person is like, did a thing and they're just like, I'm sorry I did it. These are the steps I'm taking. This is the real apology. This is what I'm doing. Like, I am willing to say there is room for growth. And people can try to fix. I'm not saying the victims have to do that. I'm not saying people who are personally affected or triggered by that kind of thing, or it relates to their own trauma, have to do that. I'm not saying people have to immediately go out and work with that person. Right. But I think kind of like ontologically, like there should be space for that. Philosophically, I think there should be space for that.
I can only speak personally about this, but I cannot accept an existence personally where growth isn't possible, where where it is impossible to at least try and get better or move into a different direction. I feel suffocated at the idea of being locked into a place where the only right next move is to have never messed up in the first place.
Never messed up. Yeah. That's
that's what I see a lot of this boiling down to. And again, I do not mean to sound like an apologist for anybody who has done these horrible things. I hope that the body of our work and the body of our criticism has, revealed that, like, I am 100% with the victims,
Yes.
But everybody still has to live. After this. And, it is hard for me, I guess, like, empathetically to accept that, just like, hey, everybody's damned no matter what, because if that is the case, what's the project? Where do any of us go, whenever any of this happens?
And again, it is up to the individual to be like, hey, this is unforgivable to me. I'm not going to listen to that soundtrack. And that's okay. Like, your relationship as a consumer is different than the kind of like ethics or morals of the personhood of any of the people. And I so much, another thing, in addition to the broken step, another like kind of parable about this, or line of thinking that I really agree with that goes around is, hey, don't mourn, if somebody gets called out, don't mourn the games that they're not going to make now because they've been called out. Mourn the games and the creation and the stuff of the people who didn't make stuff because they're, and I totally agree with that.
100%.
At the 100%, like, that is, I hate that. It makes me feel sick. Like, it's super sad. But when you said, like, you have to live, people, time still moves on. People still
do you still get to live and do this thing in this industry?
And maybe that takes, and to get that, to earn that back, takes a lot. We're not saying, when we say that we're not letting perpetrators off the hook, the thing we're talking about, this kind of restorative justice or self-improvement, takes work that we never see. So it's like, it's extremely hard for me to even think of examples, right? Like, if somebody's just like done the work. But I need to feel, in order to feel okay existing in a world, I have to believe that the work is possible. So it's not that and I'm incredibly sympathetic to the victims and the people who have lost opportunities because of any of this stuff. I think that's horrible. But if like you said, like, if the only thing to do is to have not done it, like, the past is quarantine, there is no way to do anything with that. And I want to exist in a world where there are problems that can be solved. And or at least you do the best you can with it.
And again, can't say this enough. None of that effort or burden should be put on the victim, right? I mean, you just have to hold a lot in your head, and you have to have a lot of basic first principles. And it seems it feels weird to me that these two statements that are at odds. Victims should be believed when they open up and go to great risk to testify to you and to the public, to warn colleagues and warn peers about problematic behavior, right? Things that are objective dangers. That is in tension with it should be possible to solve problems.
And it is really hard not to round, either or both of those things into all the way up or all the way down. And that's what you see.
Yeah.
A lot of, and that's really depressing.
Yeah.
And I wish that was not the case. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it sucks because it has been, we're going through a moment now. And when I say it sucks, it's not like, oh, it's hard for me, the cis white male who's not going through anything.
No,
I'm not placing that hardness above anybody who dealt with any actual abuse or anyone who has a closer relationship to that abuse.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that hardness is worse. And I'm also not saying that the hardness that the person who is called out, their experience of getting called out or their experience of doing that work is worse.
Yeah.
It's not comparative. I can have room in my mind and my heart for a lot of worse, a lot of bad things.
Several degrees of awful.
And I really, in restorative justice thing applies to, we answer that question about like, what leftist beliefs can we not always get on board with? And it's like, in terms of like prison and stuff like that, in terms of any kind of like transgression and punishment in a general sense, like I am very into the idea of, okay, the past is quarantine. Do we learn from this? Do we improve? Do we do the work to get better at this? How do we undo as much of the damage as possible, make things as better as you possibly can?
Yeah.
Is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. What a fun bummer.
I know, right?
My question is, I appreciate being asked it. And it would be weird at some point if we never talked about it, because it is such a thing going on right now. But it is, that is the complicated place that I think that we fall down on it.
To the question asker saying like, hey, how do you deal with that? It is different depending on if you are speaking just for yourself or if you're talking about, critical analysis. I think, it goes back to everybody draws their own line. And
the answer is it's lots of work and it's really complicated and it's case by case.
Yep. And it's not going to feel good. And, I think that, I don't know, approaching any artistic work completely lightly with no baggage, no encumbrance, that is a luxury. And that has kind of, if we were ever able to do that in the past, that was possibly that was either a luxury or an illusion, but it was never tenable in the long term.
And that is okay.
Yeah.
Like that is a privilege to not think about that. It's a privilege that, you don't like you can choose to have that. You'll be a better person if you choose not to have it and actually do the work of thinking about it. It is difficult, but it is not too difficult. And it is a good price of admission.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's move on to responses.
Let's do it
to September's games.
Yeah. So we're going to get started here with Gunstar Heroes and Jerry Kahn, the person who requested this game, I believe. Is that right, Gary?
Yes.
Okay, cool. They write in via contact. Thanks for covering Gunstar Heroes. It's a game that's very special and important to me, and I think you did a great job. You had some interesting and valid criticisms, though I'd disagree with the idea that the latter half isn't as strong. I do think that this game hits its nadir at stage 5, the extremely boring city stage, but has absolutely rebounded by the time the final stage comes along. But really, the reason why I requested Gunstar Heroes is because when I think of it, I overwhelmingly think of things I love. 16 unique weapon combinations that act as a kind of sub-difficulty setting. Some make the game easier than others, but they're all unique, useful, and satisfying. Big, bright, and inventive bosses, and cute, well-animated, and funny minions. The sleeper car on the train, and seeing the minions cling to the exploding engine car. Seeing bombs rain down on me, and not just avoiding them, but but throwing them back at the jetpack enemies above me. The amazing 7 Force, the reason to play it on hard so you can see all 7, and endlessly inventive Dice Palace, which incidentally is even more fun in 2-player since there are no set turns. Players can fight over the dice, and landing on the way back is not so bad because the other player can still finish the board and have both players proceed. So without going on too long, I'll conclude that for me, when I think of true classics, Gunstar Heroes is right up there, sharing my personal top spot with A Link to the Past. It was a stunning first effort from a studio that would go on to be one of my favorite developers, and in my opinion, remains a must-play to this day. Thanks again for covering it, and congratulations on the big 250.
Thanks, Jerry Con, and thanks for requesting it. It was really fun to revisit.
Yeah.
I like that game a lot. I would love to. I'm sure I played it 2 players once when I was younger, but I didn't this time. And if I played when I was younger, I don't think I got to the Dice Palace. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, might be fun to do a duck stream. Not to tell you what to do, but
that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. Moving on to responses to Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones. A couple of people wrote in about the same thing, so we kind of chopped and screwed their responses, kind of taking out little bits of it, even though they came from multiple people. So it's going to sound a little weird, but we're going to basically hit the same different parts of the same point with different people. Right. So Trevor starts Viva Contact. Something I learned about Fire Emblem back in the day is that starting around the 6th game, the hit percentages are actually lies. When the game displays a 90% hit chance, 2 random numbers are generated and the average is taken. This is then used to determine if the attack hits or not. This has the effect of ensuring that the hit percentages above 50% hit more often than the number suggests, and the hit percentages below 50% hit less often. It's subtle, but it means that your 90% hit chance actually becomes 98%, and the 30% chance only becomes 18. If you look up true hit, that's capitalized, so it's proper noun, you can find the actual calculations being done on the back end. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. And then Mitchell writes in with some more context around this via contact. A lot of video games do this sort of invisible tuning that makes the game easier without letting the player onto it. For example, in BioShock, when you're shot from behind, enemies are programmed to always miss, so there's a chance for you to turn on them. In Assassin's Creed, your last health block actually contains way more HP than the other health blocks to make dramatic low health fights happen more often. I've never played a Fire Emblem game, but this was such a neat trick that I thought I would share.
Thank you, Mitchell. Andrew rounds us out with things on this topic by saying, when it comes to other turn-based strategy games, to what extent should the developer ensure the inferred results I don't miss when I have a 95% chance to hit because ones don't exist in my D20 occur? To what extent should a tactics game contain black boxes of information? I'm quite sorry if this question is noodly, but I just keep thinking about it after missing another 95% chance in XCOM. Cut as much of this as you like. Keep up the great content. Yeah.
It was hilarious going because 3 people wrote about it right in a row, and I was like, okay, that's interesting.
You guys are all hanging out in the same coffee shop.
The second person, you guys mentioned how fair the percentages are. Actually, not the case. It's like the 3 in a row, like, whoa, okay. Yeah, no, it's like all 3 of them had worthwhile stuff in it. So I wanted to bring them to the fore.
It's interesting, that first one, the Trevor point, because that feels more fair.
Yeah.
You know, it ties directly to what Andrew's saying, because 95% feels like a relatively sure thing. Like, you know, you don't often roll natural 20s, you know, and doing that average thing makes it feel more like it's what, you know, and that kind of like illusion, you know, creating the feeling is more important than accuracy.
Agreed.
A lot of the time. And I feel like XCOM, and I haven't done the deep dive into that. Like, we haven't had an XCOM episode yet. I would love to at some point. Yeah. Know if it is, because it does feel like you miss a disproportionate number of 95%. I don't know if that does stuff the other way. Yeah. In that, what do we think about this as a mechanic? I guess
I'm fine with it. Whatever they do, you know, like, it's a little bit not truth in advertising, but if the result is something favorable that leads to it being more fun, it's all for the good, you know. To my mind, you know, again, how you show a number has a lot to do with how, like, psychologically how it's going to make you feel. You know, and like to me, like, the preference would be, instead of saying like, oh, you have a 95% chance to hit, saying, hey, you have a 1 in 20% chance to miss. Would like give, like, if you were just portraying the odds exactly as they ought to be, like, that would be the way that I would prefer them to do it. Because that, to me, like, okay, 1 in 20, that's like that seems as likely as it is. That feels truer to the actual outcome than 95%.
Yeah.
Possibly because, I don't know, whenever I see a percent, I think about grades.
Sure.
And you there's a constricted range. I'm sure there's a name for that phenomenon, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have any problem with the way that Fire Emblem does this. I like those little hacks that are mentioned. There's actually when I learned about Half-Life 2, and if this is a response later, I apologize, but I didn't realize that still someone in the Slack was mentioning that the black head crabs can't actually kill you.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They only do a percentage. I don't think we talked about that. But that gives you the feeling of panic without actually being in danger.
Love it.
Similar to when we were talking about the boat chase and how you almost never get hit. Like you do that entire boat chase and you've taken 3 damage. Yeah. Even though you're constantly being fired upon, it's obviously the craft is being programmed to miss. Love that stuff. In a tactics game, if it is 95% and it's a real 95% straight roll, I have no problem with that. I don't think there's a game design imperative to fudge those odds. I do think, even though I love XCOM, I'm really looking forward to covering it at some point. I do. The feeling of missing pretty consistently with 95% in XCOM can feel pretty bad. But I think if you're going to fudge it,
that's just a cognitive bias. That's negativity bias. You're only going to remember the times that you miss at 95%. Yeah.
Everyone has that experience. I haven't looked at
it happens with everybody on even stuff outside of XCOM.
Well, I mean, cool. I know about the negativity bias. It's not, you're educating me about that thing. But in XCOM specifically, I don't know if that's actually a straight roll or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. If it is a thing where it is being, if it's not a straight roll, I don't like that. If you're going to fudge it in favor of the player, not against them.
Yeah. Sorry, I over-explained the negativity bias. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with the. I don't subscribe to the Atheist Gamer on YouTube. I know about all the bias, all the logical fallacies.
It's interesting stuff.
It is interesting stuff. I definitely understand that thing. I just don't know that it's true for everything, because the idea is introduced in this that they can make round things in favor of the player. I can also imagine them rounding it against them as well, with the same intentions of creating drama. Yeah, because those unlikely misses are also really dramatic. So
no, I'm in favor of maximizing drama.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. But I do think if you're going to fudge any rules, fudge it in favor of the player.
There's an interesting thing that was done in a recent strategy game, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. The way that they portrayed or calculated percent to hit, where it was kind of quantized. To simplify it, but I don't know exactly how they did it. It was hey, this is 100% about to hit. This is either 50-50 or there's no chance at all. Is how they I believe they quantified it, but a cursory search does not actually show me.
I remember reading that. And that's an interesting take on that. Yeah. Philosophically, I have no problem with that, but I have not played that game because it has rabbits in it. It keeps going on sale, and I think I would like the game. So I've been tempted a couple times because I've been in a real strategy mode, but I just don't like looking at the rabbits.
No, they're unpleasant. It's their weird eyelids.
Yeah, they've got those Family Guy eyes. It's everything is kind of half closed on both sides, and they just scream all the time. Yep. Isn't their whole thing that they're hyper idiots?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not interested in hyper idiots. Give me sedate idiots. Anybody who listens to our YouTube recommendations, sedate idiots. I don't want anyone to have energy. If I don't get it, you don't get it. Is this me or you with Lauren?
This will be me. Lauren writes via contact. This is the first time I've been able to write in, and it's about one of my favorite games from childhood. Sweet. Fire Emblem Sacred Stones was recommended to me by my best friend. She had described it as a really fun chess-like game. Naturally, I requested it as my next birthday gift. I was, and still am, one of those people who unlocks every character and keeps them all alive to the end of the game. My main method of recruiting my supposed enemies was to take all of Seth's weapons, put them in range to lure them out, and place the necessary character nearby so they could swoop in during the next turn and give them some friendship. It worked very well. I played through Erica's campaign first, and then Ephraim's soon afterwards. I remember thinking that Ephraim's had more interesting levels, but Erica's had the better story. The swaying factor was Joshua. In Erica's route, you learn that Joshua is the prince of Gehenna. More importantly, he and his mother are reunited during her dying breaths. Looking back, Joshua has some interesting parallels with Lion. Both do not think that they are ready to take on the responsibilities of rulers. Joshua had left to make himself worthy of such a role in his own eyes. Lion, on the other hand, thinks himself so unworthy that he brings his father back to life so that he would not have to be king himself. Joshua may have a gambling problem, but Lion had a soul being eaten problem, so I think Joshua got the better end of that. I was also the type of person who had to unlock every support conversation. Luckily, all I had to do was sit on the first floor of the Tower of Valny until people wanted to talk to one another. Move onto the next floor and repeat until the third floor. Then I could reset so the game unlocked the conversations in the main menu. But I wasn't trapped by the 5 support conversations limit. I did, however, just look up the endings for characters who have bonded. Conversations involving La'Arachel were my favorite. The weirdest ending, however, goes to Erica and Sela. The two had very pleasant conversations about their homes, with Erica wanting to visit Sala's homeland once the war was over. In their ending, she goes and stays, and they get married and have a kid, and what the hell, Erica, you're supposed to go help run a kingdom. Unlike the other romance endings, there was no romantic confession to signal such a future. It also doesn't help that Erica refers to him as Master Sala, like his pupil does. Sacred Stones meant a lot to teenage me. I have never felt the pull to play the other Fire Emblem games, however. Multiple friends have recommended Three Houses, but something in me knows that I will find the game a chore more than enjoyable. Who knows? Maybe Sacred Stones came along at the right time for me. Or maybe I don't want to risk seeing another Erica and Sala situation.
This definitely one of the things I think we talked about it during the episode, but if I had come upon this, if I was younger, and come upon these games at a certain age, like I would have gone pretty deep on them.
100%. Yeah.
I feel like,
we talk about kid patience a lot, specifically with any kind of JRPG.
Yeah. Yep. And it applies to this. Like this has a lot of the rhythms and feeling of a JRPG without it being one. Like even down to grinding out all of the support conversations. Like that's the kind of thing that a pink tail hunting me might do.
Yeah.
That a 39-year-old me might not do.
Yeah. I will say that I picked up Three Houses. I'm not very far in it, but boy, those battles move quick.
Do they?
Yeah,
that's good.
It's really actually pretty satisfying.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I am interested to play that at some point. I'm interested to revisit Awakening at some point.
Yeah.
Through that. Yeah. Thank you, Lauren, for the story. That's really nice. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I definitely could imagine being in that spot.
Yeah.
For sure. And also, I think that both of the responses that we got, or all the responses we got, kind of an underlying theme of like pointing out some stuff that we missed.
Yeah.
Either story stuff or mechanical stuff, and we knew that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we totally appreciate it. Like we like it when people are like, polite. If they're not jerks about it.
Right.
If it's not a Twitter drive-by, someone just be like, "Hey, did you know this?" And it's like,
oh,
thank
that's
you.
actually cool.
That.
I wish I would have. I would have enjoyed that if I saw it. Yeah.
The secret to making any of those things go down well, and this doesn't have anything to do with our responses, just in general though, for people listening, is say, did you know? Mm-hmm. Like it makes everything sound okay.
Did you
like,
know,
hey,
as opposed to, oh, you missed.
Yeah, oh, you missed, or just a context-free, this is how it is. Because that just kind of comes aggressive. But did you know? Like that's just like, oh, it's a question. I get to answer that. That's, I can bring myself to this. Like that is just a much more polite way to frame like almost anything.
Yeah.
So moving on to Half-Life 2 responses. Andrew says, Viva Contact. Half-Life 2 was the first game where I was acutely aware of the hype surrounding its release, and I was aware of the possibility of extreme disappointment. I was a freshman in college when it came out, and I couldn't wait to play it, but was nervous that it would disappoint. Just 1 year earlier, Deus Ex Invisible War, the sequel to my favorite game of all time, came out, and I couldn't even get through the first level. It was just a huge letdown and a wake-up call to check my expectations in the future. Half-Life 2 was the complete opposite. From the moment I stepped off the train into City 17, I knew this game was special. I played the game on my freshman laptop in just 2 sittings. Wow. Class was an afterthought in those days. The game grabs you from the start and just never lets go. Do you guys remember any games being hugely hyped and either delivering or letting you down? Half-Life 2 will always stick with me as that perfect sequel to truly deliver on its promise.
My example for that is not unique, but Fable. I bought into the hype. And it just ended up being a fine action RPG.
I've never played any of the Fable games.
They're fine action RPGs.
That's my understanding. I know Fable 2 has been bandied about for the show before, but I've just had a big blind spot. Like, they came out during a period in which I wasn't playing a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah. I've got, a bunch of examples of that, but like one, just to throw out an easy one would be Fallout Brotherhood of Steel.
Oh yeah.
The Diablo-like game that is somehow like unplayable.
like how in the world did they botch that?
Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance that is impossible to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. Half-Life 2 is wonderful. I did not have that hype cycle for it. I just played it a little bit later, but it is awesome.
Nope, I was straight up hyped, and then I got hyped again for the orange box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Matt writes in via contact. I replayed Half-Life 2 along with the show, and it was such an absolute treat to go back to. I'm kind of the opinion that Half-Life 1 hasn't aged that well, so I was expecting something similar with 2, but if anything, it far surpassed the game that I'd remembered. As I'm sure you'll discuss, it's just a roller coaster ride the whole way, that once you start playing, you're doing one exciting thing after another until suddenly 2 hours have passed. Something that occurred to me playing it is how it's sort of structured like a generic modern video game with alternating combat, puzzle, and vehicle sections. But unlike in modern games, it doesn't force you into entirely different gameplay modes to do it. I know that some people chafe at the puzzle and vehicle sections in these games, and yeah, there may be a little junkier than an Uncharted clone, but to me, I think that's the key to the immersion. I struggle to finish a lot of modern AAA games, and I realized playing Half-Life 2 that every time one of those games switches to a forced stealth section or a forced puzzle section, it's an invitation to quit playing. Half-Life 2 integrates that gameplay variety so seamlessly that you just get locked into a perfect flow state. Thanks for the encouragement to a replay. I honestly think now that Half-Life 2 is probably my favorite first-person shooter of all time, which is something I definitely would not have said before this replay. Yeah. Like those modality switches, like those are all thresholds. And think about it, every threshold is you have to clear it. And sometimes you don't.
Yeah. And specifically the not having to, it being a half modality, like changing the context, but not your verb set or what you're doing, your capacity. Like we did talk about that a lot in the episode, but it's good to hear someone else notice it because I think it's a real strength of the game. And I'm glad we encourage people to revisit it. It's not my favorite first-person shooter of all time, probably, but it is incredibly up there, and it's one of the greats, one of the best things we've done for the show.
Yeah,
amazing stuff. Gabriel says via contact or Viva Contact. Half-Life 2 is one of my all-time favorites and has a special place in my heart. It was one of the first games I bought brand new for my PC that I put together back in 10th grade on my 10th grader's budget. A 10th grader's budget. Yeah. Like an evocative phrase. I don't I didn't even get a 10th grader's budget for this. At the time, I had a GeForce 5200 and later a 5600, so it was great to have an amazing-looking game that ran well on my modest setup. When I installed the game, I remember thinking, what the hell is Steam? I don't want any more bloatware on my machine. Little did I know. Another little surprise on those discs was the Counter-Strike Source game, or Counter-Strike Source, a game which ate up hundreds of hours of what could have been called a social life, or what could have been a social life. Half-Life 2 is one of those games I revisit every 3 years or so. It has always kept that modern feel that it had back in 2004. When I play it, I feel a strong nostalgia, and it always reminds me of what my head felt like when I was 15 or 16 years old. Another strong emotional component is the sensation captured of being in the Pacific Northwest coast in the late fall, early winter. I don't really know how to describe the feeling besides a depressing warmness. Sometimes in the summer, when the heat and sun are just starting to get old, I will fire up Half-Life 2 and take my time on the coast levels just to get that vibe. I don't hold out much hope for Half-Life 3, but if Tool can put out a new album this year, the temperatures in hell must at least be decreasing. It is certainly possible.
So talk about separating art from artist.
Yeah. Those vibes, those beach vibes are very winter beach up in Oregon for sure.
And I will always love a rocky beach, and this game has a big one.
I don't know if you feel the same way, Cole, or if Gabriel does, but I was so fucking horny for fall this year. I was dying of like fall withdrawal.
Oh,
the summer was not super hot, but it was stressful and difficult and busy because of Duckfest. And I just feel like I am falling into like a pile of leaves spiritually. In like a really serious way.
I'm super horny for it. I cannot wait to get back out into the woods. when the temperature drops down again. It has not hit us yet. I know it's hit you up there. Like this morning when I left the house, it was like 85 and muggy and stuff. I really, really want the fall to get here because I couldn't.
How about no more hot days?
Yeah, no more hot days. Max it out at 68.
Yep, 68 is pretty good.
Yeah.
I would, hey, twist my arm, 50. I'll take it. I'll wear like a medium coat.
Yeah, it's
all
fine.
the time.
It's
wonderful.
It's fine. Yeah. No, I didn't really get to enjoy the last fall because I was moving, and that was just like a months long process to actually get settled in. So I'm really happy to be like settled into a place where I can go enjoy outdoor activities. Yeah, want it. I am just bracing for when the first leaves change.
Oh yeah. Oh baby.
Let's see here. This will be me on this one. Doug writes via contact, Half-Life 2's ending felt anticlimactic to me the first time that I played it, but since then I've come to appreciate just how special it is. Half-Life 1 culminated with significant traversal and combat challenges and a predictably difficult boss fight against a giant space fetus. So when Half-Life 2 had no grand battle against the Combine Queen or something similar, it seemed strange. Over time, I came around to appreciating that the fights preceding the last stretch were the final exam, and the cathartic period that came after it was a way of making the joy of success playable, and thus something the player could actively experience, rather than the purely passive reward of a cutscene. The only other game that did this so successfully that I can think of is Super Metroid. Once you get the Hyper Beam, the gameplay challenges are trivialized, but in a way that is empowering through the final escape from Zebes. The more I meditate on it, the more I think games need to maintain some interactivity between the last gameplay challenge and the final cutscene or credits. It honors the player's participation that separates games from any other medium, without subtracting any of the challenge of a game's climactic moments. It's the difference between watching a bunch of NPCs throwing you a parade and getting to march in one.
Yeah, that's well observed.
Yes.
Yeah, I also really like the victory lap.
Same.
That you actually get to play. Mm-hmm. So, and Super Metroid is actually a great comparison.
Yeah. To
the end of Half-Life 2. Like, that's really apt.
Yeah. No, I co-sign that response. It's good.
Yeah. Good job, Doug. That is very good. Moving on to some responses about pinball, the live episode we recorded at Duckfest. If you're like, hey, you guys didn't do an episode on pinball, watch your fucking tongue. We did. It's part of, if you go to Duckfeed.tv/Duckfest, you can pick up the most recent Duck bundle. Or Duckfeed.tv/Duck bundle. Mm-hmm. Pick up the most recent bundle for charity. It goes to Oasis, and this has the live recordings from Duckfest,
yes,
including our pinball episode.
Yeah. Gary, I've gone and played more pinball.
I have too.
Nice.
I went to the Comic-Con and PRGE had a room set up, and I was dead on my feet. And just overstimulated as all hell, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to play some pinball though."
I'm overstimulated. Give me some flashing lights and loud noises.
Totally. That's why I was going, is just to get overstimulated for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So that is the Comic-Con experience. I started in the artist alley, which was good and sweet, and ended in the Geico "We will value fuck you to Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell" value zone, which was a gigantic blue trailer that you went into.
Ooh.
And I don't know what happened. I know it sounds like a bit, but I literally never saw anyone come out of it. So
I was going to say, why did you go into the trailer, Gary?
Because they were making lizulons. They were making lizardulons or something in there. Yeah. They were turning everyone into geckos.
Oh.
There was also the Monster coffee energy drink Mad Lab and the Ninsaki Beer Dome thing. And I'm or Ninkasi Beer Dome. And I'm this is so loud and dumb. I have to get away from this section of Comic-Con. This is fucking dumb as hell.
Was this at the convention center or the expo center?
Yeah. Yep. Convention center. So Rose City Comic-Con, which has gotten really big. Yeah. It is now a place for autographs mostly, but you can also go and just kind of walk around and check shit out.
Yeah.
I told you this, I sent you a text, and just because there's nowhere else to put it. They had the guy who did all the character designs and did King of the Hill, and I was going to buy you some art and get it signed, but it was all mashup. Yeah. It was literally all Bobby dressed up as R2-D2 and shit.
Yeah.
Exclusively.
Did you send me a picture of that, or did you just explain it? I forget.
I think I just explained it in part because there's no cell reception. So,
yeah.
I sent you a picture later of a booth, but it took hours for it to send.
Yeah. No, so. It was you said it's all Bobby as C-3PO or whatever, and my only response was, look up on my work scheme ID.
Yeah, it was really depressing. Like
Yeah.
he might have like then I looked through, I didn't just like look at his stuff on display, like he had books and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it's just very sad to have somebody go into the con mode of just like, okay, everyone has to be a Doctor Who character. I can't make money.
Yeah.
You know, very depressing.
Well, thank you for looking anyway.
No problem. I was surprised to see him there. It was super cool. Finally, so Doug's final response about pinball. Viva Contact. Growing up, we had a pinball machine in our house. My dad, for reasons I do not know, decided on a machine themed on Elton John's Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy album. It was relatively simple as pinball machines went, but it was a great companion to the Atari games I was playing at the same time. If it wasn't obvious already, these are from these touchstones. I was born in 1980. Me too. Sometime around the third or fourth grade, the machine stopped working, something to do with the on-off switch. It sat in the upstairs room for decades until maybe 3 or so years ago, my dad contacted a local specialist to have it fixed so my daughter could have the same experience with it. A pickup truck arrived, and we lugged Elton John down the stairs into bed. That's when things went wrong. It's a good sentence. I was following the truck to its destination. The pinball machine was tightly secured in the truck bed, but unfortunately nobody, including my dad with his science PhD, factored in the wind resistance of the upright part of the machine, which folded down onto the rest of the machine with a crash. What was a simple circuit repair was now a complete and total loss. Hopefully someday I'll get a new machine so my kids can have the same joy of playing that I did. Just a word of caution to any listener who has to transport one.
Wow.
That's a bummer.
I'm surprised that technician didn't take that into account.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
Like that, don't be too hard on your dad.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
that's definitely
Like,
the pinball technician's fault.
it's the professional's fault to figure out transport, I think.
Yeah.
Huh.
Wowie zowie, yeah. When I was looking at buying a pinball machine, when I was going crazy on pinball,
Yeah.
I was looking at like transporting them, like what it took, because there are places that ship them, but they all have to do freight shipping because they're huge. And
Right.
every single one of them was like, hey, fold down the top, you dummy. So this technician did not know his shit
Yeah.
in a huge bummer way.
Yeah. Well, what a sad loss for your family. That would have been fun
Yeah.
for your daughter.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for your responses. We really appreciate it. If you have anything to say about next month's games, which we're going to, which are October,
October, yeah.
which is Call of Cthulhu, Silent Hill Shattered Memories, the Resident Evil 7 DLCs, or Alan Wake, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yep. The deadline for those is the 15th of October, and the deadline for our November games is the 15th of November. Gary, let's talk about what we are doing in November.
Yeah, and this is an exciting month. It's all thrillers and killers, no fillers for the rest of the year.
Yep.
And some weirdos in here, which I love.
Yes.
So the first game we're doing on the beginning of November is The Last Express.
Yeah. Classic adventure game. It's been on our list for a little while. And I'm looking forward to getting to jump into it. I've never played it before, Gary.
I have played it, but never beat it. It is one of those games that has a real-time element
Yep.
to it. So it is something where I'm going to say right now that I'm going to use a guide.
Yep.
I don't feel bad, but it is so cool looking. It is so neat. There are so many great touches. It's really cool. This was a Patreon request from Jeff Sweet.
Cool.
So thank you, Jeff. The next game we're doing, and this is the cool weirdo one, and I'm really excited to cover this because it's so fucking weird, and I've never heard anyone talk about it like a video game, is Simpsons Hit and Run.
Yeah. So all that time, like, we got to do a Rockstar game, like a proper open world game. When are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it Simpsons style.
This is not that. This is the Hit and Run, I think, isn't this the Crazy Taxi knockoff?
No, you're thinking of Road Rage.
I thought you're right, but I thought the Rockstar one was the Simpsons game.
No. Simpsons game is like a 3D platformer kind of thing. Got you.
Yeah, this is like a GTA clone that is based in the world of the Simpsons.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Excited. This is also a Patreon request from Vulpes. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
And because we can, like, if we can't talk about the Simpsons or the fidelity to the Simpsons, like, how insufferable will we be about any factual errors it makes? Is your bet Barry?
Okay.
I'd put money on that.
Yeah, no, the bets are starting at very.
It's very and up.
No, I'm excited to get to drive around Springfield. This is a game that I've wanted to play for a while. Like, it was considered the good Simpsons game back in the day before he was tapped out, became everything.
Yeah, and I mean with the arcade game,
Yes.
this is definitely and then people like the Simpsons game because it comes from the Simpsons writers, but I've heard it's not great as a video game.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm really excited to play this.
Same.
It is only on hardware. Obviously, it's never been on a downloadable service, but I think the PC version is abandonware.
Ooh.
So I think that's going to be the way I'm going to go for it.
Cool. And then the final game, our premium game for November, is going to be Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been asking for this for quite a while, including me.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you. This is another one of those games that I've just not played because I knew we were going to be doing it on the show. So
yeah, it is very good.
Yeah.
It's a really good game. It is, it's not, is it Deus Ex good? No. Does it have like a kind of a bummer ending? Yes. It is a really, really fun modern 0451 though.
Yeah.
Just a lot of really there is a conversational boss battle system in this that I think is about as good as they get.
Cool.
In this, it's really good. So it's an awesome game. I want to talk about it forever. So that's what's going on in November. If you are going to be, if you're in the Pacific Northwest or if you like traveling, we're going to be at Portland Retro Gaming Expo in October. That is, where are the dates? That's mid-October.
It is going to be the weekend of the 18th, 19th, and 20th. So we will be on the floor on the 19th and the 20th at our booth, and I do not know if we have a panel time yet.
We don't have a time, but we do have a panel, and we do have a panel subject.
Yes.
We are going to be talking about retro, hidden, underrated gems, retro gems. It is kind of a boilerplate topic, but we've never done it.
Right.
And there's got to be a way on this network that I can talk about Ranger X and replay it, and nobody's patronizing it. So I got to be able to talk about Ranger X.
Yeah. So we are going to be making our cases for games that I think each other, we both want the others to play, but also at large, like, hey, go back and reevaluate this.
Yeah. This is worth a look.
Yeah.
So we don't know the exact format of it. We have to kind of plan time. Like, I think it'd be fun to do separate out by console. Maybe do like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis. Like each do 3. I think that'd be kind of fun. But we'll have more details as we get closer.
Yeah.
So, and stay tuned. A lot of fun stuff happening in the fall. The fall's a big time for us. PRGE. We'll talk about Duckstream. After PRGE, things like that. And as we mentioned, it's cold now and therefore good. Thanks everybody for listening. If you like this show, if you want to submit questions or prompts, or hear our wrap-up episodes or our catch-up episodes where we do the questions we didn't get to on here, you can do so by becoming a patron. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Yep. Thank you to everybody who has done that in the past. And also thanks to everybody who came out to Duckfest.
Oh, absolutely. Really do appreciate it. That was a very fun time.
Yeah.
So, ratings and reviews are very helpful. Talking about us online, things like that, joining us on the Slack, all of those things are great.
Cool.
I think that's probably about it.
Think so. We'll be back next time with Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah. Yep. Until then, good night.
Good night.